The rest stroke is a technique used by classical guitarists to help bring out a melody line. Compared to the free stroke, the fingers are held more straight and they're allowed to rest on the next adjacent string. So for example, if I take my M finger on the high E string, what I'm going to do is I'll strike the high E string and follow through and allow the finger to rest on the B string. This helps to create a fuller, more rounded sound. And we can do this with any of our fingers. We can take the I finger, M, A, and we can even do this with the thumb. So now we're going to learn an excerpt from a song called Romance, which uses this technique. So check out the example and then we'll break it down. So we're going to learn the first 16 bars for this song. This song is in 3/4 time and has a triplet feel. So we can count each measure like this. 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a. We're always going to play on the top 3 strings until I indicate otherwise. So we're going to pick with the A finger on the high E string, M finger on the B string, I finger on the G string. And for now, the B string will be open and the G string will be open. So what I'll do is I'll call out the fret numbers on the high E string. But just assume every fret number that I call out will then be followed by the open B string and the open E string. So in the first measure, we're going to strike the open low E along with the 7th fret on the high E string. And then I'm going to play the open B, open G string. 7 on the high E, followed by the open B, open G, and once again, 7 on the high E, open B, open G. And that's the first measure. Here's the second measure, open low E along with the 7th fret on the high E, 5th fret on the high E, 3rd fret on the high E, open low E along with the 3rd fret on the high E string, this is the start of measure 3, 2nd fret on the high E, open high E. Measure 4 starts with the open low E string along with the open high E string, 3rd fret on the high E string, 7th fret high E. So here are the first 4 measures together. In measure 5, we're going to strike the open low E along with the 12th fret of the high E string. And once again, 12 on the high E. And once again, 12 on the high E. So measure 5 would sound like this. Measure 6 begins the same way as measure 5, open low E along with 12 on the high E string. Now 10 on the high E string, 8 on the high E string. So here are measures 5 and 6 together. During the 7th measure, we're going to switch to an A minor chord sound. So here we're going to bar on the 5th fret on the top 3 strings. With the 4th finger, we're going to play on the 8th fret of the high E string. And we're going to start this measure by striking the open A string along with the 8th fret of the high E string. Then we're going to pluck the B string 5th fret, G string 5th fret. The next 3 notes will be the 7th fret of the high E, 5th fret B, 5th fret G string, followed by the 5th fret on the top 3 strings. So here's measure 7 once again. Measure 8 sounds like this. So here we're ascending through the same frets that we played in the previous measure. So we're going to start with the open A string, 5th fret on the high E string, followed by the 5th fret on the B and the G strings. 7 on the high E along with the 5th fret of the B and the G strings. Now 8th fret on the high E, 5th fret B, 5th fret G string. So measure 8 once again would sound like this. During measure 9, we're going to switch to a B major chord sound. Here we're going to need to bar on the 7th fret with the 1st finger. We'll place the middle finger on the 8th fret of the G string, and we're going to start this measure by striking the 7th fret of the low E along with the 7th fret of the high E string. Then we'll play on the 7th fret of the B string, 8th fret of the G string. So the first beat of measure number 9 would sound like this. Now with the 3rd finger, place that on the 8th fret of the high E string. So we'll strike 8 high E, 7 on the B, 8 on the G string. And to complete this measure now, we're going to play 7 high E, 7 on the B, 8 on the G string. So if we put that together, here's measure 9. For measure 10, we're going to start on the 7th fret of the low E along with the 11th fret of the high E string, followed by 7 on the B, 8 on the G. And now we're going to move back with the 3rd finger, place that on the 8th fret of the high E string, play 8 on the high E, 7 on the B, 8 on the G, followed by 7 on the high E, 7 B, 8 on the G string. So let's play measures 9 and 10 together. Here we go. 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a. The next 2 measures, measures 11 and 12, are the same as measures 2 and 3. For measure 13, we're going to play a B7 chord. So we're going to form this chord shape, 2nd fret on the A string, 1st fret on the D, 2nd fret on the G string, open B, 2nd fret on the high E string. Now we're going to do a picking pattern based on this chord shape. Starting off 2nd fret on the A string along with the 2nd fret on the high E string, open B, 2nd fret G. Now strike the 1st fret of the D along with the 2nd fret of the high E string, open B, 2nd fret G string. Now 2nd fret high E, open B, 2nd fret G string. So measure 13 would sound like this. Measure 14 sounds like this. Very similar. Here we also start on the second fret of the A and the high E string, open B, second fret G. Now we're going to play the first fret of the D string along with the third fret of the high E string. So we need to stretch our fourth finger up to the third fret, followed by the open B, second fret G string, back to the second fret on the high E, open B, second fret on the G string. So here are measures 13 and 14 together. And now I'll play through the final two measures, measures 15 and 16. So here we're basing this idea around an E minor chord. I'm going to start off by playing on the second fret of the D string, open high E string, open B, open G string. Now second fret on the A string along with the open high E, followed by the open B, open G string. Third fret on the low E string along with the open high E, followed by the open B string, open G string. And then strike an E minor chord, all 6 strings. So once again, here are the final two measures, 15 and 16. And there's our excerpt from Romance.